Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Ducati team manager Davide Tardozzi admitted the factory is baffled after Francesco Bagnaia's catastrophic Mandalika weekend, a dramatic low that came just 7 days after the Italians' double win in Japan. With Bagnia down on pace, crashing in the Grand Prix and describing the weekend as very disappointing, Tardozzi says engineers face a tough week to pinpoint why the GP25 produced such an extreme swing in performance. Francesco Bagnaia's difficult Mandalika weekend was compounded by a revelation on Tuesday: the GP25 that snatched victory at Motegi, an engine that emitted visible smoke on the run to the flag, was the same unit fitted to one of his bikes in Indonesia. After a dominant performance in Japan, Bagnaia tumbled to last in the sprint and crashed out of the Grand Prix, and the engine's story underlines how fine the margins are when machinery and setup are already being pushed to the limit. Renowned rider-manager Carlo Pernat weighed in on the fallout from the Mandalika Grand Prix, questioning Marco Bezzecchi's aggressive move that triggered a multi-rider crash and left Marc Marquez sidelined with a shoulder injury. Pernat mixed sharp criticism of the incident with praise for Fermin Aldeguer, and a wider look at how the weekend reshaped the fight for the podium places. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. The most puzzling element is the suddenness of the drop-off. Bagnaia dominated at Motegi on reportedly the same package, then at Mandalika he could not find grip or rhythm. Tardozzi flagged the reversal as strange and immediate, prompting an all-hands technical effort. Pecco faced a very difficult weekend after an incredible weekend in Japan. We are thinking about what happened. When a rider flips from pole to win to last place laps in a week, the explanation can be multifactorial: setup, tires, track interaction, or rider confidence, and Ducati says it will test each possibility. Ducati's technical department has been tasked to analyze telemetry, parts choices, and race conditions with urgency ahead of Phillip Island. Tardozzi underlined that Gigi D'Aligna and his engineers are focused and working to understand the failure modes. This week will be a really tough week for our engineers to think about what happened here. That concentrated post-race review is normal when anomalies threaten a title bid, but the compressed calendar increases pressure to find actionable answers fast. Ducati stops short of blaming either machine or rider outright. On one hand, teammates and satellite runners showed the GP25's potential elsewhere on the weekend. On the other, Bagnaia's lack of feeling suggests something specific to his bike or how he was set up. We have to be focused on Pecco's bike and Pecco's feeling because it seems Ducati was not so bad by the end of the weekend. The sensible line is to treat the issue as an interaction. Small hardware or setup differences can amplify rider-specific confidence problems. Questions remain about how much 2024 spec components are in play, an uncertainty Ducati has avoided fully clarifying. That opacity fuels outside speculation that switching components week to week could be behind the wildly different outcomes. Tardozzi's comment that other Ducatis showed pace at Mandalika hints the problem wasn't wholesale. Rather, a Pecco-specific mismatch or detail may be to blame. With Marc Marquez sidelined for the next 2 rounds after his Mandalika crash, all attention and expectations for Ducati's second rider intensify. Bagnaia's results will carry more weight in Phillip Island and Sepang as the factory tries to protect its season narrative. I trust absolutely Pecco and I trust our engineers. That vote of confidence is as much about optics as engineering. Ducati must show it's addressing the problem while protecting the rider's mindset. Ducati's reaction to Bagnaia's Mandalika disaster is methodical urgency, admit ignorance, marshal engineering resources, and aim for rapid diagnostics before the next flyaways. Tardozzi's faith in both rider and staff is clear, but so is the challenge: convert data into solutions under tight time pressure. Until the root cause is found, Bagnaia's form will remain the storyline Ducati cannot afford to leave unresolved. Ducati introduced the so-called Motegi engine during the Catalan weekend, Bagnaia first ran it at Catalonia and then again on Friday and Saturday in Indonesia. He raced the older Qatar engine in the Mandalika sprint before switching back to the Motegi unit for Sunday's warm-up and Grand Prix. Team logs show Bagnaia has now opened all 7 engines available to him so far this season, with only the very first unit withdrawn at Catalonia when the Motegi spec appeared. "I didn't know about the smoke. I just felt a bit less performance in the last 4-5 laps on the exit of some corners. But the lap times were there. I'm just happy not to get any black and orange flag." Running recently introduced power units across successive events is common when teams chase a performance step, but it also increases exposure to teething faults. The Motegi engine's puff of smoke in Japan did not prevent Bagnaia from claiming a double win, yet the same unit's fitment in Indonesia coincided with a catastrophic weekend. Whether the smoking signaled reduced peak power, oil consumption, or a marginal reliability issue that affected drivability remains unclear from public data. Bagnaia reported weaker exits from certain corners, symptoms consistent with either engine degradation or a setup mismatch. On a track like Mandalika, where grip and stability are prime, even small power irregularities can translate into large lap time losses and ultimately race incidents. Engine allocation looms large. Ducati, like Aprilia and KTM, is restricted to 8 engines for the full 22-round season under current regulations. Honda and Yamaha, concession Group D, are allowed 10 and freedom to modify designs. Teams also receive an additional engine for the final 4 rounds, starting at Phillip Island. Bagnaia's use of 7 units to date, with 1 withdrawn, leaves limited margin for further experiments or replacements. With engines counted tightly, running suspect units back-to-back is a strategic gamble, short-term performance gains versus long-term availability. Ducati's engineers will now have to balance data from Motegi and Mandalika to assess whether the Motegi engine's smoke was cosmetic, performance-related, or a warning sign. If degradation is confirmed, choices include remapping, mechanical refresh, or reserving fresher units for higher priority rounds. For Bagnaia, deep in a season of form swings, the priority is clarity, know the cause, restore confidence, and avoid compounding issues with further engine changes. The public explanation that lap times were there will offer little comfort if the root cause remains elusive. Bagnaia's reaction combined relief with perplexity. He was relieved the smoke did not trigger a rules breach and bewildered by the sudden drop from Motegi heroics to Mandalika despair. The episode reinforces the twin realities of modern MotoGP. Marginal gains can be decisive, and marginal faults can be devastating. He felt some loss of performance but was focused on data checks and engineering answers rather than public drama. The Motegi engine episode is a neat microcosm of Bagnaia's 2025 campaign, flashes of brilliance interrupted by baffling setbacks. Ducati now faces a short window to diagnose whether the smoked unit was a one-off anomaly or a symptom of deeper issues. And Bagnaia must hope the answer comes quickly, because with engine allocations tight and the season entering its decisive phase, there's little room left for guesswork. Pernat did not mince words. He called Bezzecchi's start very, very serious, and wondered how the Italian allowed the situation to develop. The contact not only cost Bezzecchi 2 race results, but also put Marquez in a vulnerable position that led to an injury. He described the maneuver as a clear mistake and questioned the decision-making in that split second. In Pernat's view, the error wasn't just lost pace, it had real human cost, a top rider's health and the integrity of the weekend. Pernat posed a provocative what if Marc Marquez had made the same move as Bezzecchi, how would the outcome, and the perception, have differed? The suggestion points to double standards in how risky moves by different riders are judged. I was just wondering, if it had been Marquez who had made that maneuver, what would have happened? The question forces the paddock to reflect on context, reputation, and consequences when interpreting on-track incidents. The Italian balanced his critique with praise. Firmin Aldiger's dominant maiden win for Gresini was, in style, and KTM produced a surprisingly strong showing in difficult conditions. Pernat singled out Aldeguer as a standout young talent discovered by Luca Boscascuro. He lauded Aldeguer's maturity in managing the gap and KTM's unexpectedly good results. Pernat's commentary highlights how breakthrough performances can soften the blow of a weekend marred by controversy. Pernat sounded alarm bells over Pecco Bagnaia's slump, warning that continued poor form could threaten Ducati's internal balance and Bagnaia's standing. He even joked about fanciful rider swaps, then quickly cautioned that contracts complicate such ideas. But the underlying point was serious. Ducati faces decisions if problems persist. If this continues, difficult questions will have to be answered between Dalligna and Bagnaia. When a factory rider falls from form while his teammate dominates, organizational scrutiny inevitably follows. With only a handful of rounds remaining, Pernat mapped the championship battle. Alex Marquez appears poised for second, while third could be a multi-way scrap including Bagnaia, Bezzecchi, Acosta, maybe Morbidelli. The Mandalika dramas have tightened stakes and left opportunities for reshuffle. He predicted a fierce fight for the last podium spots and noted how quickly a season can crystallize. Pernat's closing view framed Mandalika as a turning point that both clarified and complicated the championship picture. Carlo Pernat's take combined blunt criticism, a pointed hypothetical, and genuine praise. He condemned the risky move that reshaped the weekend, spotlighted Aldeguer's breakthrough, and warned that Ducati must confront uncomfortable questions if Bagnaia's form doesn't return. By asking what would have happened if roles were reversed, Pernat forced a debate about accountability, context, and the fine line between brave racing and costly error. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!